everyone. In our previous episode, we talked about time building, and today we are continuing our series with the overarching theme of family building as it relates to finances. Let's consider a very important scripture on financial prudence in the family home. Proverbs 10, verses 22 to 23 says, "The blessing of the Lord makes a person rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Doing wrong is fun for a fool, but living wisely brings pleasure to the sensible." There is a quote from John Dewey that I love, which says, "The hardest thing to attend to is that which is closest to ourselves, that which is most constant and familiar. And this closest something is precisely ourselves, our habits, and ways of doing things." Today's episode is designed to prepare you to become a better financial steward in the home and to develop you as someone who successfully incorporates biblical stewardship into your repertoire of family duties in order to enhance financial buoyancy in the home. After all, this series is all about navigating our finances God's way. Whether you are single or married, the ability to deftly utilize wisdom and discernment when handling money in the home can impact many key areas. When prudently deployed and in conjunction with biblical principles and strategies, proper money management can be the most effective way to develop the full capacity of kingdom living to meet the emerging challenges of today's economic environment. After all, the ultimate purpose of financial literacy is to catalyze a shift in people's mindsets when it comes to money matters, to help them accomplish what they're capable of but have not yet achieved to their fullest potential. I believe that God supplies enough people with the personal and financial resources to respond to the needs of others. If all believers recognized how God has blessed them and then used the resources He has given them to do His will, hunger and poverty would be wiped out. No one person can do it all, but each person should do something. So, Favor, over to you. What plans do you feel should be set in place for families to achieve their financial goals and dreams?
I believe that creating intention for families to grow financially requires a lot of communication. And that communication starts with planning, because when we look at Habakkuk 2:2, you have to write it down and make it plain so whoever sees it may run with it. We have to practically put that into action so that if we are planning our finances, if we're planning our weekends, if we're planning our meals, if we're planning our vacations, then those plans are being built based on a foundation that has been set from the roots. Because most times people plan because they just want to plan and cross it off the list, but they're not looking at it from a perspective of, I'm learning something as I'm going through this planning process, because I know if I don't plan now, then I might miss out on opportunities that I could have taken a chance in. So one of the things I also feel too when it comes to discussing points for family building, one area that I look at the most is focusing on multiple accounts for essentials. Because when you have a business, and I'm learning this as I go, that anytime you have only one bank account or one account that has everything, then you're not really financially being smart, because it's going to set you back if something happens to that account. That's why there's always been a saying that, don't, what do they say? There's a saying that goes like, don't put all your
Don't put all your
eggs
eggs in
in
one
one
basket.
basket. Yeah, I thought about the basket. I was like, yeah, I know there's eggs in basket. So don't put all your eggs in the basket, in that one basket, because that one basket, right, could break, it could drop, it could slip. And if you have three in that one basket, then you want to take those two out and then diversify it. Because if you're thinking about financial success, think about where the financial success is coming from. It's coming from a place. So if you're getting resources from different places, different streets, different locations, different calls, different time zones, then you should also think about having different multiple accounts that allow you to diversify your portfolio, so that as a family, when you're building, okay, this money is for McDonald's, this money is for Chick-fil-A, this money is for, you know maybe furniture, this one is for credit card payments, so by the time you look at your accounts, whatever you're getting in, you're saying, okay, this is how much I make a month, this is how much I make a year, this is how much I'm putting down, and then we can talk about it. And I feel like another point people don't really focus on is talking about money, because it gets really uncomfortable. Some people get uncomfortable talking about money, and
Yeah.
it's like, is it wrong to talk about money, or is it a taboo to talk about money when money is involved? Because sometimes when you want to talk about money, people have a completely new personality. So you have to really understand how are you approaching it and how are you saying it, because money has ruined relationships. Money has taken people's lives. Money has destroyed foundations. Money is powerful, and money is also a spirit. So when you also look at where you're getting the money from and who has the money, you also go back to, Haggai 2:8. When you read that and you know that God owns the silver and the gold are his, then you can know that if you focus on the source, then the source will provide the resources for the family that he's blessed you with. So if we disconnect from the source, then we're going to be definitely, at some point it will just be bad, and you don't want to be there. So those are some things I also like to see, even, as a family, for building. When you think about building, right, and you think about people who build houses, think about it like this: people who build houses, they're together, they're putting the blocks together, they're putting the cement together, they're, laying the foundation together, they're probably carrying the wood, they're carrying the bricks, they're carrying the bags, they're doing it together, they're building. So when you're building, you can't build by yourself, because even in your body, your body is building every day, and it needs a lot of cells to build. So those building blocks have to be very sane, they have to be very sound, and you have to also be spiritually and financially savvy to physically, prepare for these things. And you also think about IQ, EQ, SQ, AQ. Those are things that you can check online. Google those things. Just find out what are those things, the four different types of, quotients. There's also mental intelligence. So that's something I got to learn from my church. And you wonder, how do you process problems? How do you solve problems? Are you cautious of how you say things? Because when you're talking to your family about money, what if your spouse doesn't like what you're saying? Or what if she doesn't like the idea? What if the husband doesn't like it? What if the wife doesn't like it? What if the kids don't even want that? What if the kids want that and you can't get that? Or what if you can get that but you don't feel like it's enough for them, or you don't think it's worth the time, or it's worth the payment for that? So a lot of discussions are had, but if you can make it easy to talk about money at least once a week, like on a Sunday when nobody is talking about money or bills, choose a day of the week, maybe a Saturday night, after a movie, or, before you pray, or right after church, or maybe in the evening before everyone starts the new week. Choose a time, because when you plan, it goes back to planning. Some families put They put plans on their refrigerators and say Mondays for this, Tuesdays for that. They have a timetable. Everyone knows what the day is. If we're gonna wash dishes, we know today is this person's day. This one is that person's day. This person's going to cook this. This person's going to take the trash out. If you're building a family, you have to think about all those things. So I look at it from how do you process it, because there are so many moving parts. And if you're not sane, if God is not your anchor, you can go insane and you can really fall. So look at it that way and also build out your structure. Another thing to also consider is gamifying your building structures. When you think about Legos, right? Build out that structure and use games like Monopoly, right? Use games like
Mhm.
Monopoly, because we only play Monopoly when, families come together, or it's a day, everybody's somebody's birthday, just to have time. But if you really think about that game, and you play it as a family and say, okay, maybe not every week, you might do it every week, but let's say every month, at least once a month, let's play Monopoly. You've played Monopoly 12 times a year with your family. That allows you to understand how to process money. So even when kids get money during Christmas, they know what to do with the money. Your kids
Mhm.
start to surprise you, like, look at what my son did with money, look at what my daughter did with her money. You get happy because you taught them the right thing. But if we shy away from those conversations, then whatever happens is going to happen. And we don't know what's going to happen either. So I feel like having games and playing those things, Scrabble, just, checkers, chess, games that allow you to think, you can really allow people to, have those things. And, playing games allows you to also make sure that you keep your mind engaged. There's something called the reticular activation system, and that reticular activated system in your brain is what is allowing people to retain information. So if it's new information and I'm retaining it, how am I going to retain it, and in what form am I going to retain it? So if we're playing Monopoly and we're getting better every week, every month, then by the time you're handling money, you're handling, property, you know exactly how to handle it. So that also tells you how it works. What do you think about that, Erica?
I guess I just want to say thank you for everything you've just shared. And I see things the same way. I think it's important for every young couple that's starting out in a new home to put these things that you've just said into consideration. I feel like, it's very important for both people to be involved in the process. I think in most marriages, it's usually the husband who resists addressing the family finances. And yet, as the leader of the home, it's he who should be taking the initiative. So, thank you for saying that, because it really goes to show your humility. I feel like um, years of financial struggles could be avoided in many homes if the men would be humble enough to admit that part of the blame lies with them. And I think that, you often find many men love to talk about women and their tendency to like purchase unnecessary items like, purses and shoes and all of that, decorative items for the home. But I agree. Yeah, women, we do have difficulty leaving pretty things alone. And I think that in some homes, the wife can become a major obstacle to financial reform. Um, but yeah, men have their weaknesses too, like getting involved in certain hobbies that may lead them to not really want to like check and see where the problem is coming from, and it's really hard then for the wives to understand why she should be economizing, right? When her husband is constantly taking on these new hobbies or doing these things where money's just going down the drain. And I feel like although there is nothing inherently wrong in taking on certain hobbies, I do feel that couples do need to be honest about where they're at financially and then be able to do the work to be financially savvy and just be able to navigate things in a biblical manner. So, my next question really is about your thoughts on kingdom living. I wrote a blog post about this on my blog, but I'd also love to know your perspective on this, especially as it pertains to families. Why do you think that we should be taking into consideration the concept of kingdom living as Christians and as believers?
I believe that we should take charge in the kingdom because the first, well, it should be the first, but technically the one of the first and the primary.
I guess my question would be like, what is your idea of kingdom living? I guess that's a better way to rephrase that.
Yeah, okay, so I would say the better way to have a kingdom mindset is to have a kingdom lifestyle that requires kingdom principles. And
Mm-hmm.
that principle started off in the beginning when God talked about dominating the earth and taking charge, and taking charge over the seas, over the land. That means anything on the land, whether it's a rock or wood, build something, and he didn't tell us what to do with it, he just told us what to do. And I believe if you're thinking in a kingdom mindset and God is in charge of everything, and we know that we have Christ on our side, then we know that we can definitely do all things through Christ who strengthens us, Philippians 4:19. And we can do all things because doing is a verb, and doing requires faith, and faith requires action. So when you look at all the principles and living a lifestyle, even going to your point on your article, and if you're trying to figure that out, please click the link in the description so you can, have more context. When you're looking at the core factor of having a kingdom mindset or kingdom lifestyle, it requires us to prioritize our time. I think it boils down to time
Mm-hmm.
because
Which we discussed at the last episode, yeah.
exactly, because that time we're spending with our families, first of all, spending our time with God, quiet time, then that time with the family, then time with our significant other, then time with, work, and then time with, family externally. All that time is factored in. So if we start off with God at the center, then the time that He's given us will be easy to go through because we're walking in the Spirit, and that allows us to lead. So me as a leader will now go ahead and lead the family, go ahead and lead the people, when that time happens, and then anybody else listening will do the same thing actively or do it eventually. Because when you lead as a man, you're leading from a point of authority, and if you lead wrong, then that's on you. And like you said earlier, sometimes a woman might want to buy some purses, but that also goes back into the first point, putting money aside for those things. Because if we put
Mm-hmm.
money aside for those things and we know, okay, we can spend 20% of this budget on our holiday because we've been putting money in here for 6 months, why not? You can buy yourself a bag, because, or I can buy you a bag, or you can buy me, a watch, whatever it is, because we know that there's money flowing, there's cash flow, and we're also thinking about the time we're spending. Because when children come into the picture, that's money and time, like times two, so, or times 10, really. So before you even multiply that, ask yourself, are you even spending time with God, right? Are you spending time with your family, right? Are you spending, are you spending a quality time in a qualitative way? If you're not spending that quality, then eventually it will show in the long run. So that's what I would say to, to having that kingdom lifestyle. It goes back to time and also chance as well.
Wow, that's impressive. Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree. I think that, the idea of stewardship, the idea of kingdom living, kingdom building, it shouldn't just be talk. It should be from moving from that nice topic of discussion to an overriding vision, right? That should be implemented even in the small choices. And for me, my idea of kingdom living is committing my resources to building the kingdom. And I feel like, yeah, like when it comes to shopping and purchasing items, it's really about communicating this with my partner, about the vision, and then, realizing the importance of budgeting and making inquiries about credit cards, about past expenses, and just reviewing those ongoing costs, as well as curtailing expenses so that any debts can be repaid, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like this goes again back to like tracking, like we might be buying a little here and there, but when we start to track the finances, it reveals the actual cost. And I've realized that, a lot of people, when they go shopping, it's really about buying acceptance rather than actually purchasing clothing. It's like a way for them to, I guess, uh, forget rejection, and it's unfortunate, really. So I think that this is where prayer comes in, especially if it's a struggle for one individual in the family home. Maybe it's the man or the woman, if she's constantly feeling some type of way or he's feeling some type of way, which leads then to, you know, a shopping addiction. I think that this is where prayer comes in, to where, you know, they're able to pray about it either together. Um, and if it's not something that's working, then being able to then set limits, either by agreeing to not purchase items for a length of time or just asking for accountability. I think this is where tracking really comes into play, is where, it's able to then reveal what's out of balance, and where the inner deficiency is stemming from, as opposed to like it just being more about the expense. So, um, all
Yeah.
right, well, I don't know if you had anything else to add to this topic before we conclude.
No, this was spot on. I feel like what we've talked about has sparked a couple of fireworks, because I feel like now they can listen back and like say, I never thought about playing Monopoly. I didn't think about putting money into a church that can help with, service, putting your money to God's work, or getting yourself involved somehow. Like for me, adding podcasts to churches, it's not just my podcast, it's not just your podcast. We are extending our talents because God gave us talents, and He's going to ask us what we use those talents for. So if you use it for yourself, okay, great. But if nobody else benefited from that but you, then that's not good, because a talent is supposed to be, it's a gift, it's supposed to be given, so and that's why Christ was, He was given to us, so if you look at the concept of giving from God's love down to humanity, it also points out how we should also express our love to our families, and how we should also show that through different mediums. So yeah, I'm definitely excited about this topic, and I think they should rewind this. if you're listening to this, you should rewind this, whether you're listening with somebody or by yourself. But yes, please make sure you're able to tap in as well.
Thank you. Absolutely. And in conclusion to this episode, if you're struggling financially or you're having difficulty reaching financial goals you've set, I appeal to you to sit down and consider tracking. And next episode, we'll be talking about investment building and ways to diversify your portfolio. But in the meantime, you will find that doing something as simple as tracking, although it may take some time and commitment, it will be very revealing and invaluable in your pursuit of biblical stewardship. Just commit to tracking every dollar for a period of time and then faithfully follow through with that. And you'll find that it can be an educational and eye opening experience. So, here are some questions to think about. Have you tried tracking your expenses? What did you learn? What are some frivolous items you tend to purchase regularly, forgetting the yearly effect on your finances? And how much recreation or pursuit of hobbies is acceptable before God? Well, we'll catch up with you next week by God's special grace.
Amen. Catch y'all soon. Bye for now.
Bye.